He is the world's oldest elementary school student, enrolling in first grade at the age of 84 and setting a Guinness World Record that still stands today. But it wasn't until his story was adapted into a critically acclaimed biographical film that the world truly understood the bittersweet, harsh, yet inspiring life he had lived. This elderly man's name is Marouge, a tribal resident of Kenya, Africa. Despite a life of hardship, he deeply loved his homeland, working tirelessly every day under the sun, believing his days would quietly pass by. Then one day, a radio announcement shattered his peace. The Kenyan government declared free universal education. The news instantly ignited excitement. Adults and children alike flocked to a makeshift school built from wooden planks, a scene as fierce as cheetahs chasing prey across the savannah. The school teachers were swarmed by eager parents. At that moment, a volunteer rushed to Principal Jenny with a tricky matter. Marouge had come to enroll, holding a newspaper article about the free education policy. Jenny understood his intentions, but gently explained that the school was for age-appropriate children only, not adults. A male teacher was even firmer, stressing the school had limited resources, only 50 desks for over 200 students, so there was no room for an elderly man. He even tried to discourage Marouge by listing strict requirements. Do you have a notebook? You'll need two, and an HB pencil, sharpened neatly, with an eraser on one end. Those are the rules. They thought these barriers would make Marouge give up, but the next morning, he showed up fully prepared with all the supplies, waiting by the school gate. Yet the male teacher refused him again, this time saying he didn't have a school uniform. Curious, Jenny asked why he was so determined. With heartfelt sincerity, Marouge replied, "I want to learn to read." Though touched, Jenny couldn't accept the idea of an elderly man taking a child's place, and had to refuse him once more. Though disappointed, Marouge did not give up. He sold his only rooster to buy fabric, had someone sew a simple uniform, and polished his worn-out shoes. The next day, dressed in his homemade uniform, he returned to school. His persistence finally moved Jenny, who made an exception and let him enroll, even seating him in the front row so he could hear the lessons clearly. The old man did not waste this rare opportunity and was a model student. For the first time in his life, he learned how to hold a pencil and write. While the children played outside, he sat quietly alone in a corner, feeling out of place, until a little girl with limited mobility approached him, her genuine eyes touching his heart. However, during a class assignment check, the male teacher, who had always looked down on him, noticed Marouge hadn't sharpened his pencil as required and used it as an excuse to order him out of the classroom to sharpen it immediately. Marouge froze in fear, almost unable to move. Jenny quickly took him outside to get some fresh air. It turned out Marouge was once a freedom fighter resisting British colonial rule in Kenya. When the British invaded, he witnessed his village burned, people killed, and was imprisoned in a detention camp. Under torture, the British used a sharpened pencil to pierce his eardrum, and his wife and children were killed in the ordeal. Hearing this, Jenny deeply respected him. Marouge not only wanted to learn to read but hoped to pass on the spirit of freedom and resistance to future generations. But the male teacher still saw him as a troublemaker, and tensions rose. One day during recess, Marouge witnessed bullying and, in a moment of urgency, used his cane to discipline the naughty student. Unfortunately, an inspecting education official saw the scene and mistakenly thought Marouge was abusing the child. The official ordered his expulsion and transfer to an adult school. This did not extinguish his thirst for knowledge. The next day, he walked alone from his remote village to the city's adult school, only to find the environment disorderly, with rebellious students uninterested in learning. Disappointed and confused, he returned to Jenny, asking to come back to the classroom that truly belonged to those who seek knowledge. When I was a child, I couldn't go to school because we had no money. Later, I took up arms for freedom. Now, I just want to read a letter myself to understand what it really means, he said. The next day, Jenny hired him as a teacher's assistant, allowing Marouge to continue his journey of learning. After some time, news of the octogenarian returning to elementary school quickly caught the media's attention. Facing the barrage of questions from reporters, Marouge calmly replied, "The power of knowledge lies at the tip of a pen. Being able to read and understand the world is incredibly important to us. It's a way to break free from ignorance and ignorance." With extensive media coverage, Marouge's story spread worldwide. Yet, the outside noise never shook his original passion for learning. He kept his head down, diligently practicing phonics, as if the whole world didn't exist. However, the villagers' ignorance became another barrier. They accused teacher Jenny of wasting precious educational resources on an old man, suspecting ulterior motives, or that she was exploiting the situation for personal gain. Some parents blamed Marouge for their children's declining grades, fueling public outrage. Protests broke out demanding Marouge be expelled from the school. Watching these agitated villagers, Marouge's mind drifted drifted back to those bloodied and fiery memories of his youth. For his country's independence, he lost his wife and children and sacrificed nearly everything. Now, all he wanted was a chance to learn, yet he faced rejection and humiliation from his own people, an absurd and bitter irony. Fortunately, teacher Jenny refused to be swayed by rumors, and continued to provide Marouge with private tutoring. But this persistence only deepened some villagers' resentment. Jenny began receiving anonymous threats. People slandered her and tried to sabotage her marriage. More radical villagers even showed up at Marouge's home to intimidate him, hoping to force him to give up. They resorted to vile tactics, hiring thugs to disrupt the school with sticks and stones, scaring the children into hiding under their desks. But these clumsy tricks did not intimidate the weathered old man. He swung his cane fiercely, driving the troublemakers off campus. When facing parents who hired these thugs, Marouge chose not to hold grudges. Instead, he embodied the spirit of repaying evil with kindness. Patiently, he taught these parents' children, making learning fun and inspiring their interest. While explaining, he came up with a rhyme. Can you imagine a long neck, big belly, wearing a hat? The kids eagerly repeated, long neck, big belly, wearing a hat. In that moment, Marouge was not just their classmate, but also a caring mentor and friend. True education isn't forcing kids to memorize mindlessly, but awakening their thirst for knowledge. Though Marouge's academic skills lagged behind others, a lifetime of experience had taught him a simple yet profound truth: knowledge can change one's destiny. However, societal prejudice made it hard to accept an elderly man taking up scarce educational resources. To protect Marouge's enrollment, kind-hearted Jenny was eventually transferred by higher authorities. On the day she left, the children spontaneously gathered to present heartfelt gifts to their approachable teacher. Marouge stood at a distance, tears in his eyes, watching this bittersweet scene before quietly turning away. The next morning, dressed in a suit and holding a small lamb as travel money, he set off for Nairobi, Kenya's capital, embarking on a new unfinished journey. Meanwhile, the elementary school welcomed a new teacher. Parents sang and danced, cheering around the vehicle, seemingly celebrating the newcomer and Jenny's departure, completely ignoring the students' feelings. The children locked the school gates and threw debris outside, causing chaos that scared the new teacher into fleeing immediately. At this moment, Marouge arrived at the Education Bureau. He wanted to meet the chairman, but was stopped by security at the door. Seizing a moment when the secretary wasn't paying attention, he walked straight into the conference room. Facing a room full of officials, Marouge showed no fear. Pointing to the photos on the wall, he firmly declared that he had been imprisoned alongside these founding figures in the British detention camps. Without their struggle, there would be no Kenya today. He then took off his suit jacket, revealing the dense scars covering his back. These were left by the British. They crushed my skull and cut off my toes. We must remember history and learn from it, but also do better. We need good teachers because the children's future depends on the seeds we sow today. Finally, he looked directly at the chairman and resolutely pleaded, "Please bring Jenny back." This heartfelt speech moved everyone present. The chairman's panel ultimately approved the order for Jenny's return to the school. Seeing Jenny walk back onto campus, Marouge's face lit up with a relieved smile. The children eagerly ran out of their classrooms to warmly welcome their beloved teacher. However, due to his advanced age, learning gradually became more difficult. Marouge understood he might not finish all his studies, so he confided in Jenny that his real reason for attending school was to personally read one letter. Though he had learned much during this time, some complex words still eluded him, so he asked Jenny to read the letter aloud for him. Jenny took the letter, her expression turning solemn. She then handed it to the male teacher, who had always been biased against Marouge, asking him to read it. "Dear prisoner number 4339, on behalf of the Republic of Kenya, we hereby inform you that the inhumane treatment you endured during your imprisonment by the British colonial regime has been officially recognized. You are eligible for corresponding compensation. Records show you suffered cruel and inhuman treatment due to your long refusal to renounce your oath of allegiance. The President extends his highest respect and gratitude for your heroic sacrifice for the cause of national independence. Sincerely, the President of the Republic of Kenya." Marouge had endured nearly a decade of imprisonment and torture. This long overdue letter finally unveiled that buried pain from years ago. At that moment, the resentment and sorrow he had held deep inside found some measure of release. His homeland had not forgotten him, and those years fighting for freedom were not in vain. The film The First Grader was co-produced by the BBC and Kenya, based on the true story of Kimani Maruge. At the age of 84, he became a first-grade elementary student and persevered all the way through 5th grade. Later, due to declining health, he was sent to a nursing home for care, but during those 5 years, he never missed a single day of school. His spirit inspired countless people, and even earned him an invitation to speak at the United Nations. The movie not only faithfully portrays Marouge's touching fight for the right to education, but also weaves in Kenya's complex social and historical background. On one hand, Marouge's tragic past left deep scars in his heart. On the other, through his story, we glimpse the harsh realities of that era. It also reminds us that behind today's peaceful lives lie many untold stories of blood and tears. In the film, the violent and ignorant villagers represent a widespread bystander mentality. In real life, whenever an elderly person returns to school, there are always those who judge out of curiosity and prejudice. They believe a person should act according to their age. These deep-rooted stereotypes became the biggest obstacles on Marouge's path to learning. Some even used public opinion and social pressure to morally blackmail him, trying to strip him of his basic right to education. At the film's conclusion, Marouge and the children shout, "Freedom!" together. That mix of aged and youthful voices is not only a cry for freedom from colonial oppression, but also a call for freedom to be educated and to break free from societal prejudice. Marouge's own experience proves that learning has nothing to do with age or identity. No matter how difficult the road, as long as you start, you will reach your destination. Alright, that's today's story. I'm Lucky Recaps. If there are stories you want to hear or movies you want to watch, just let me know. I'll tell them for you. See you next time.